Demetrius Cole had spent most of his adult life scaling the heights of commerce. A self-made billionaire by 35, he was known for ruthless but visionary investments that transformed small companies into industry powerhouses. His days were filled with steel and glass skyscrapers, private jets, and penthouse offices. Ranches, dusty fields, and horse stables? Those were not on his radar. So when the lawyer's phone call came about an unexpected inheritance, a sprawling ranch in the heart of Montana, Demetrius nearly dismissed it as a mistaken identity. But the details were clear. His great-uncle Silas, who he barely remembered from childhood, had passed away. Silas had left his entire property to Demetrius, citing a hope that the boy who soared so high might still find his roots on the land. Demetrius was initially perplexed. He'd visited the ranch as a small boy. Vague memories of open skies, the smell of hay, campfire stories by the barn. He recalled Silas as a stoic man who taught him to ride a pony at age 6, a moment overshadowed by a skittish horse that nearly bucked him off. The memory lingered mostly as a lesson in humility, something he rarely felt in the boardrooms. His inner circle urged him to sell. Why keep a ranch you'll never use, they asked. Cash out or develop it into a luxury resort. Others pitched more creative money-making schemes. Yet the notion of disposing of a family legacy, something that had shaped part of his childhood, nagged at him. The voice in his head whispered, maybe you should see it first, before deciding. So on a clear summer morning, Demetrius boarded his private jet from Manhattan to Helena, Montana. He had minimal luggage, just enough for a few days. The plan was simple: evaluate the property, confirm its condition, and likely arrange a sale or a transformation. No sense letting a large spread of land languish. Upon landing, he rented an SUV and drove 2 hours into the breathtaking countryside. The sky stretched endlessly, a dome of vivid blue dotted with clouds. Rolling hills and pastures painted the horizon green, a far cry from the concrete canyons he knew. Cattle grazed lazily by fences. Horses roamed in distant corrals. A wave of nostalgia tugged at him, surprising him with a flicker of longing. I used to think life was simpler here, but probably too slow for me now. Finally, he spotted the sign, Sagebrush Plains Ranch. It hung on a tall arch of weathered wood at the entrance to a winding dirt road. He turned in, following the bumpy path. Soon, the main ranch house came into view, an old, rustic building with a large porch, paint peeling in places. Nearby stood a big barn, a few outbuildings, corrals, and a stable. The property was expansive, but something about it felt tired. He could almost sense the ranch struggling for breath. A small cluster of ranch hands stood near a pickup truck. They noticed the unfamiliar SUV approaching, exchanging uncertain glances. One of them, a tall older man with a gray beard, stepped forward as Demetrius parked. Demetrius climbed out, dust swirling around his polished loafers. Definitely not ideal footwear, he noted wryly. Can I help you? The older man's tone was cautious. Demetrius extended a hand. I'm Demetrius Cole. I believe I inherited this ranch from Silas Cole. I'm here to look around. The man blinked, then gave a slow nod. I'm Hank Barrett, Silas's foreman. We heard you might be coming eventually. Sorry for your loss. Silas was a good man. We miss him. Demetrius dipped his head, feeling an unexpected pang. Yes, he was. Thanks. He glanced around, noticing run-down fencing, scattered hay bales, a general sense of disrepair. So, I'd like to figure out the ranch's status. Maybe you can show me around? Hank agreed, though he looked uneasy. Sure thing. Is it Reynolds? We've been running low on funds, so it's been tough to maintain everything. Silas got sick, bills piled up. We do what we can. Demetrius's brow furrowed. This place was more than just a bit shabby. It was borderline decrepit. Could the ranch be turned around, or was it beyond saving? He followed Hank toward the stable, mentally noting repairs needed. Roof might leak, stalls rotting, fencing too old. This was more than a small fix. Inside the stable, the smell of horses, straw, and dust enveloped them. A few stalls held animals, lean horses that peered at the newcomer with curious eyes. One of them snorted, stamping a hoof. Hank ran a soothing hand over its muzzle. Just then, footsteps echoed outside. Another figure strode into the stable, leading a chestnut mare by the reins. A young woman with braided hair under a battered cowboy hat. She wore worn jeans, boots, a plaid shirt, every inch the ranch cowgirl. Her posture was straight, exuding confidence. Yet her expression hardened the moment she spotted Demetrius. "Who's this?" she demanded, eyeing Hank. Demetrius opened his mouth, but Hank beat him to it. "Miss Cassidy, this is Mr. Cole, Silas's nephew, well, great-nephew, the new owner." He sounded awkward, as if anticipating conflict. Her eyes narrowed, flicking over Demetrius's city attire. She set her jaw, ignoring his offered hand. "So you finally decided to show up?" Demetrius's brow rose at the hostility. "Yes, I inherited the ranch, and you are?" She drew herself up. "Cassidy Sawyer. I've been working here for 2 years trying to keep it afloat. Silas let me manage day to day after he got ill." Hank coughed. "Cassidy took on a lot. She's got a good head for ranching." Cassidy shot Hank a brief glare, then refocused on Demetrius. "You plan to sell us off to the highest bidder, or maybe tear it all down for fancy developments?" Demetrius reeled at the aggression. "I haven't decided. I came to see the ranch, assess the situation. This is my family's land. My mother used to bring me here when I was little. I'm not looking to tear it down, at least, not yet." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Don't do me any favors, city boy. We've poured our sweat into this place. If you'd shown up a year ago, maybe Silas wouldn't have." She cut herself off, exhaling sharply. "Look, I have chores to finish. If you want to observe, fine. But try not to get in my way." With that, she turned her back, leading the mare toward an empty stall, ignoring the tension that crackled in the air. Demetrius stood there, taken aback by her blunt hostility. She's not a fan, that's for sure. But he also saw a flicker of pain in her eyes, as if she blamed him for Silas's decline. Hank cleared his throat. "Cassidy's been protective of the ranch. Silas treated her like family. She's worried you'll scrap everything. Don't mind her bark. She's just riled." Demetrius nodded slowly. "I understand. I won't force anything. Let's keep going." They continued the tour, but his thoughts lingered on Cassidy Sawyer. Fierce, stubborn, clearly invested in saving the ranch. If a rescue was possible, she might be the key. But bridging her distrust would take effort. And if he was honest, he felt an odd spark at her unyielding glare. She was no sycophant trying to please him. Rather, she was a proud cowgirl who had no time for billionaires messing with her domain. That alone made him want to prove he wasn't just city boy with a fancy checkbook. If staying on the ranch for a while could help him gauge its viability and possibly make amends for his absence, then perhaps that's exactly what he'd do. Early the next morning, Demetrius woke in the ranch house's spare bedroom, a room that smelled faintly of cedar and dust. It was far from the luxury suites he was used to, but it was comfortable enough. He rose, stretching, and peered out the window at a golden sunrise spreading over rolling fields. Horses roamed in a distant pasture, silhouettes against the radiant horizon. Something in his chest clenched, maybe nostalgia, maybe longing for simpler times. He dressed in more practical clothes this time. Jeans, boots he'd hurriedly bought in town the previous evening, and a flannel shirt. He might look out of place, but at least he wouldn't ruin expensive loafers in the mud. Venturing outside, he heard the morning symphony of ranch life. Neighing horses, lowing cattle, and an occasional bark from a ranch dog. He headed toward the stables, determined to find Cassidy. Perhaps he could start bridging that gap. Maybe he'd help with chores to show good faith. But he found her first in the barn's tack room, rummaging for bridles. She glanced up, scowling lightly. "What do you want?" He held up his hands in peace. "Good morning. I thought I'd lend a hand. Learn the ropes." She snorted. "You? Lend a hand? Right." She grabbed a saddle, slinging it over her shoulder. "Fine. Follow me if you want, but I'm not babysitting you." He bit back a retort, reminding himself to stay patient. "I'm serious, Cassidy. I'd like to understand ranch operations. I might be the owner on paper, but you're the one who knows how to run it." A flicker of surprise crossed her face, but she shrugged and turned away, leading him to a corral where a few horses milled. "We've got to check the fence line later, but first I'm riding out to gather some strays that wandered to the north meadow. We had a break in the fence last week. Some cattle might be loose too." He nodded. "I'll come along." He eyed the horses nervously. He hadn't ridden since he was a kid, and that memory involved being nearly bucked off. But he swallowed that fear. If I'm serious about understanding the ranch, I can't shy away from a horse ride. Cassidy sized him up, then chose a sturdy bay mare. "She's gentle enough. Don't spook her." He inhaled, letting her demonstrate how to saddle up. After her quick instructions, he tried mounting, nearly stumbling. Cassidy bit back a smirk, obviously amused. He finally swung a leg over the saddle, gripping the reins. The horse shifted, snorting. His heart thumped. But once they started walking, he found the motion tolerable, almost soothing. They trotted out of the corral, Cassidy leading on a sleek chestnut gelding. The morning sun bathed the land in warm hues. The ranch sprawled in every direction, rolling hills dotted with clumps of sagebrush, a distant tree line where the meadow gave way to forest. A sense of awe crept through him. This is all mine now? It's stunning. Cassidy slowed near a slight ravine, scanning for tracks. She spoke over her shoulder. You see how the grass is bent down? A small group of cattle probably passed here. We'll follow the signs. He squinted, trying to see what she saw. Barely any difference in the vegetation. I'll take your word for it. They rode in silence for a while, only the rhythmic clop of hooves and the rustle of wind in the brush. Eventually, Cassidy spoke, tone guarded. Hank says you might keep the ranch. That true, or are you just humoring him? He exhaled. I haven't decided, but I'm open to exploring how we can salvage it. I can't promise I won't sell if it's impossible to sustain, but I want a real shot at turning it around first. She nodded, expression clouded. We're behind on taxes, vendor bills, feed costs. Silas tried to do too much with too little. We need an infusion of capital or some new business angle. Guest ranch? Organic beef brand? Something. He listened, intrigued by her brainstorming. Have you done a thorough analysis of finances? She shot him a dubious look. I have spreadsheets, nothing fancy. But yes, I've tried. A new business plan might help, but who's going to foot the bill? He coughed, half smiling. Well, I do have a certain capacity for investment, she huffed. Yeah, no kidding. That's not the issue. The question is whether you care enough to invest for real or just toss a Band-Aid at it then bail. He admired her bluntness. Let's see how feasible it is. If we can find a workable model, I might invest. But it also depends on having the right manager or partner. She raised an eyebrow. Meaning me? He shrugged. If you want it, seems like you're the ranch's backbone. She fell silent, gaze forward. They followed a small creek where a few heads of cattle grazed on the far bank. Cassidy clicked her tongue, steering her horse to round them up. Demetrius watched, impressed as she guided the animals with practiced skill. At times, she'd bark a sharp command, and the cattle obediently turned. He tried to mimic her movements, albeit clumsily. Soon they'd corralled 6 stray cattle. Cassidy led them back toward the main pasture, the animals lumbering along. It was nearly midday by the time they got them penned. Demetrius dismounted, legs sore, but a strange sense of accomplishment coursed through him. Leaning against the fence, he wiped sweat from his brow. That was exhilarating, actually. Hard work, but satisfying. Cassidy's mouth quirked. Imagine doing it daily, with minimal help. That's ranch life. He studied her, chest tightening. Sounds like you need more hands. Another reason to invest properly. She stilled, something shifting in her expression. If you're serious, let me show you the books. Maybe we can find a plan. A slow smile curved his lips. This is progress. I'd like that. They parted ways to tend chores, but Demetrius's mind buzzed with possibilities. The ranch felt alive, brimming with potential. Meanwhile, Cassidy, stubborn, proud, and fiercely protective, intrigued him more than any heiress or socialite ever had. She challenged him to care about something beyond wealth. Maybe, just maybe, saving this ranch was the path to bridging their worlds. That evening, Cassidy reluctantly shared the ranch's financial records with Demetrius, spreading documents across the ranch house's dining table. He scanned them, pulling out his phone's calculator app to do quick sums. She watched from across the table, arms folded. Revenue from cattle sales is down, he noted. Expenses for feed, vet bills, these lines are ballooning. The orchard's orchard? You have an orchard too? She nodded. Yeah, a small orchard of apricots and peaches, but it's mostly neglected. Silas wanted to expand it, but we never had the capital. We do small local sales, that's all. He frowned. So, multiple revenue streams, none fully optimized, and the ranch's overhead is huge for the staff. Though you're short-handed, it's a vicious cycle. Cassidy's jaw tightened. I tried to pitch a guest ranch or something to Silas, but he was old school, didn't want tourists messing up the place. Then he got sick, And it was too late. Demetrius drummed his fingers on the table. Could we do a combined approach? Organic beef brand, plus orchard expansion, plus a small guest ranch for city folks who want an authentic experience? She seemed intrigued. We'd need modern marketing, better lodging. The bunkhouse is run down. Also, we'd have to brand it carefully so it doesn't become a theme park. We want real ranch living. He grinned. I can handle branding and marketing. We do it all the time in my businesses. You handle the authenticity side. She looked uncertain, but a spark of hope glimmered. I guess that could work if we found the money to fix things up. He laid out a rough plan. Invest in renovating the bunkhouse for guests, fix fences, revamp orchard irrigation, modernize stable facilities for potential horse riding lessons. They'd need an online presence, reservation system, tours. Over time, the ranch could become a stable income generator while keeping its core ranching identity. Cassidy's eyes shone with cautious excitement. That's a lot of changes. Silas was set in his ways, but maybe this is the future. Demetrius nodded. I'd foot the upfront costs. As the place becomes profitable, it repays some of the investment. I'm not looking to squeeze the ranch. I just want it self-sustaining. She exhaled, glancing around the worn dining room that still held Silas's old rocking chair in the corner. He'd probably scold us for letting city tourists roam the fields, but I think deep down he'd prefer we keep the land alive rather than see it sold off. He reached across the table, gently covering her hand. We'll keep the ranch's spirit. Let's do it together. Her cheeks flushed at the contact, but she didn't pull away. All right, she murmured, voice wavering. I'm in. A charged moment passed, an unspoken acknowledgement that they were forging more than a business plan. She withdrew her hand, clearing her throat. Well, we can start by tackling immediate repairs. Tomorrow we fix fences. You up for manual labor, city boy? He chuckled. I'll do my best. Don't laugh if I can't handle the post-hole digger. She smirked, rising. Oh, I'll definitely laugh, but I'll also lend a hand. A flash of warmth crossed her eyes. Thanks, Demetrius. This is giving me hope. He stood as well, nodding. Good, because hope is exactly what this place needs. As she turned to leave, he impulsively reached out. Cassidy, she glanced back, eyebrows raised. You're doing a great job here. Thank you for not giving up. She swallowed, a hint of emotion flickering. I won't, as long as we have a shot. Then she left the dining room, footsteps echoing in the hallway. Demetrius exhaled, heart thumping. The dynamic between them was shifting from antagonism to tentative partnership. The ranch might be the stage for not only a business revival, but a deeper personal connection. He shook off the daydream, though. First things first, fix fences and show her he was committed to more than just throwing money at problems. The next morning, they tackled fence repairs along the ranch's northern boundary. Hank joined them, along with 2 other ranch hands, guiding the process. They used a pickup truck loaded with wooden posts, wire, and tools. Cassidy insisted on showing Demetrius how to dig new post holes, set them firmly, then stretch barbed wire along the line. The manual labor was grueling, sweat soaking Demetrius's shirt, yet he persevered, fueled by a desire to prove his seriousness. At one point, Cassidy teased, "You city types allergic to calluses?" He shot her a playful glare. Maybe, but I'm immune to snark, so keep it coming. By midday, they'd replaced a significant section of fence. They paused under a large cottonwood tree for lunch. Simple sandwiches and water from thermoses. Cassidy and the others bantered about local rodeos, upcoming weather patterns, the best ways to corral cattle. Demetrius listened avidly, chiming in with questions. He noticed how Cassidy's eyes lit up when discussing an old roping technique or a plan to rotate grazing fields. Her passion was infectious. Meanwhile, she seemed to be thawing, occasionally tossing him a smile that wasn't laced with suspicion. Later, they returned to the ranch yard, stowing tools in the barn. Hank wandered off, leaving them alone in the barn's shaded interior. A dusty beam of sunlight filtered through the rafters, highlighting floating motes. Cassidy brushed straw off her jeans, removing gloves. Demetrius faced her, heart pounding from a mixture of exertion and something else. She glanced up. You did good out there. Surprised me? He smirked. Was that a compliment? She rolled her eyes, but her lips twitched. Don't let it go to your head. He stepped closer, voice low. I won't, but I appreciate it. A hush settled. Dust motes shimmered around them. He could almost hear the thud of his heart. She studied him, eyes flicking to his sweaty shirt, then meeting his gaze. You, have dirt on your cheek, she said softly, reaching up. Her fingertips brushed his skin lightly. His breath caught. The moment felt electric, her hand lingering. He noticed the faint freckles on her nose, the curve of her mouth. She's so close. He lifted a hand, tentatively resting it on her waist. Cassidy, Her eyes fluttered, but she didn't pull away. Yeah? Adrenaline surged. He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her lips. She tensed, then melted, responding in a sweet, unsure manner. He felt the barns spin around him as they deepened the kiss, forgetting the sweat, dust, everything. Her arms slid around his neck, a soft sigh escaping her. It was a moment of raw, unexpected tenderness in the midst of daily ranch grime. They parted slowly, breath mingling. She blinked, flush creeping up her cheeks. I didn't think we'd... He brushed a thumb across her lips, heart hammering. Me neither, but I wanted to. She swallowed, a shy smile forming. I guess, me too, he grinned, stepping back with reluctance. We should probably handle those chores. She exhaled, nodding. Right, the ranch won't fix itself. She mustered a playful smirk. But maybe later we can talk more? He beamed. Absolutely. She turned and walked away, shoulders stiff with nerves. But a small smile tugged at her face. Demetrius stood there, feeling like the barn had turned to gold. In the midst of hammered fence posts and horse stalls, something new and fragile had bloomed, a deeper bond, a spark bridging their once separate worlds. Let's see where this leads, he thought, chest tight with anticipation. With the fence repairs well underway, Demetrius proposed a formal business plan to the ranch staff. Focus on raising premium organic beef, restore the orchard with modern irrigation, and convert the bunkhouse into a rustic bed and breakfast for city slickers seeking an authentic ranch experience. Cassidy and Hank offered practical insights, cost estimates, local vendor deals, possible pitfalls. Demetrius poured in an initial investment, hiring a small crew to handle repairs. The bunkhouse roof was replaced, interior rooms painted, bathrooms updated. The orchard's neglected trees were pruned, new saplings planted. Slowly, Sagebrush Plains Ranch began stirring back to life. Cassidy seemed torn between excitement and worry, fearful it might fail, but hopeful for success. Demetrius reassured her he wasn't aiming for quick profit, but sustainable growth. Meanwhile, their personal relationship blossomed behind the scenes. They stole kisses in the barn after a long day, or shared quiet dinners at the ranch house. She teased him about his evolving roping skills. He teased her about secretly liking city cappuccinos, which she refused to confirm. He found joy in the ranch tasks, though he was still the city boy learning the ropes. She teased him gently, though her eyes shone with genuine fondness. One afternoon, Demetrius discovered old family photographs stashed in the ranch house attic. Pictures of his mother visiting as a young woman, Silas in his prime, various relatives riding horses or branding cattle. Cassidy joined him, rummaging through dusty boxes. They chuckled at the outdated hairstyles and clothes. But the pictures also revealed a legacy of warmth that Demetrius had missed, overshadowed by his corporate pursuits. Cassidy gently squeezed his arm, understanding the swirl of emotions. Your roots run deeper here than you realize, she said softly. He nodded, a lump in his throat. I wish I'd come back sooner. Maybe I could have helped Silas more. She set a comforting hand on his shoulder. We can't change the past, but you're here now, doing right by him. Touched by her empathy, he guided her into a gentle kiss, letting the attic's musty air swirl around them. She melted into him, arms looped around his neck. He tasted the faint tang of dust on her lips, but also the sweet promise of a future being built on these old foundations. As renovations progressed, Demetrius invited his father to visit. It was a tense relationship. His father had never fully approved of Demetrius's jump to entrepreneurial risks, but seeing the ranch might help them reconnect, especially since it was paternal lineage that tied Demetrius to Silas. Mr. Harrington arrived one bright morning, stepping from a sleek rental car. He was a stoic man in his 60s, face lined from years of stress. Demetrius greeted him with a firm handshake, ignoring the pang of nerves. Cassidy hovered nearby. Uncertain if she should intrude, Demetrius introduced her politely. Dad, this is Cassidy Sawyer, our ranch manager and partner in the new plan. His father eyed Cassidy with mild curiosity. She lifted her chin, unwavering. "Nice to meet you, sir." He nodded curtly. "So you're the driving force behind these expansions?" Cassidy frowned slightly. "We all are. Demetrius is providing resources. I provide local knowledge. The ranch needed both." Demetrius gently placed a hand at the small of her back, wanting to show unity. "Dad, let me show you around. You'll see how far we've come." Phew. They toured the orchard, the bunkhouse with half-finished renovations, the stables. Mr. Harrington occasionally asked terse questions about costs, ROI, potential markets. Demetrius answered calmly, citing marketing strategies. Cassidy chipped in with details of supply logistics. By the end, the older man seemed grudgingly impressed, though not effusive. Later, they sat on the ranch house porch, sipping iced tea. Mr. Harrington cleared his throat. "I must admit, Demetrius, I didn't expect you to take this place seriously. I assumed you'd flip it, but maybe you have a real chance here." Demetrius relaxed a fraction. "I believe so, Dad. With Cassidy's help, the ranch can thrive and honor Silas's legacy." His father gave a slow nod. Then, glancing at Cassidy, he added, "You must have your hands full managing everything. Good luck with all this." Cassidy accepted the lukewarm approval graciously. "Thank you, sir. We'll do our best." As the sun dipped, Mr. Harrington departed, offering Demetrius a stiff hug and Cassidy a polite handshake. Once gone, Cassidy let out a breath. "Your dad's intense," Demetrius chuckled. "Trust me, that was him being tame. I think he respects you in his own stoic way." She snorted. "Could have fooled me, but if he's not calling me a gold digger, that's progress, right?" Demetrius grimaced, remembering how tabloids spouted similar nonsense. "He's not that type, just cautious. He sees potential, but also risk." She shrugged, resting her head on Demetrius's shoulder. They stood on the porch, watching the horizon glow with evening colors. "So you're going to stick around long term?" He slid an arm around her waist. "That's the plan. The city's still part of my business life, but I can manage from here or travel as needed. I want to see this ranch flourish, alongside us." A soft smile curved her lips. "I like the sound of that. This place is beginning to feel alive again." He felt warmth flood him, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. And as the sky bled into twilight, they shared a tender kiss, reaffirming that the seeds of love they'd planted were growing strong roots, ready to face whatever storms came their way. As summer stretched into early autumn, the ranch renovations neared completion. The orchard's irrigation lines were fixed, the bunkhouse boasted fresh paint and rustic chic furniture, and Cassidy managed day-to-day ranching with renewed vigor. Together, she and Demetrius hammered out marketing strategies, photographing scenic spots for the ranch's new website and forging relationships with local businesses for cross-promotion. At the same time, they tested the orchard's first real harvest, picking bushels of peaches that sold well at the local farmers market. Cassidy nearly cried with joy seeing customers line up for Sagebrush Plains produce. Demetrius, wearing a borrowed cowboy hat for marketing flair, teased her about how she was basically a peach ambassador now. She shot back that he should learn to handle orchard ladders without toppling. Despite the banter, their synergy was evident. But challenges arose. A sudden drought threatened water supplies. The orchard needed more careful rationing of irrigation. Cassidy insisted on cutting back orchard watering temporarily to prioritize livestock. Demetrius argued they should find a middle ground or pay for emergency water deliveries. Tension flared. He insisted the orchard was crucial for brand identity. She retorted that livestock was the lifeblood. They clashed, both stubborn, neither wanting to concede. One hot afternoon, the argument boiled over by the stable doors. "You're ignoring the reality that our cows need water to survive," Cassidy snapped, eyes flashing. "That orchard can wait a few weeks." Demetrius's frustration sparked. "The orchard is part of the ranch's future revenue. If we let half the peaches shrivel, we lose momentum." She threw up her hands. "Momentum means nothing if half our herd dies in a heat wave." He paused, realizing she had a point, but reluctant to cede. "I could pay for trucking water from up north. Pricey, yes, but it'd solve both issues." She softened slightly. "You'd just pay for that?" He exhaled, controlling his temper. "Yes, I want both orchard and livestock thriving. Let's not sacrifice one for the other if we can find a solution." She let out a ragged breath. Fine, if that's truly feasible, I'm open, but next time, consult me before deciding. He nodded. Deal. I respect your knowledge, Cassidy. I just want to help. The tension eased. They locked eyes, a flush of lingering anger mixed with affection. She muttered an apology. He apologized too. Then, in an impulsive move, he tugged her into an embrace, pressing a quick, heated kiss that ended the dispute with a breathless truce. That night, by lantern light in the ranch house, they hammered out an emergency water delivery plan. She admired his willingness to fund an expensive fix, while he appreciated her unwavering dedication to the animals. It struck them that synergy often rose from conflict if they harnessed each other's strengths. As they parted ways in the hallway, she murmured, "We sure can be stubborn, huh?" He laughed softly, like two bulls locking horns. "But maybe that's why we work. We push each other to be better." A gentle grin. "You better believe it, Harrington." She gave him a lingering goodnight kiss, leaving him with a sense that each challenge they conquered bound them closer. The orchard livestock standoff was just another test of their partnership, both romantic and business. They were forging a new identity for the ranch, and in the process, forging a deep bond for themselves. By early fall, the ranch was ready for its first wave of ranch stay guests. A few adventurous city dwellers booked a weekend to experience real cattle herding, orchard picking, and campfire nights. The station's newly updated website, courtesy of Demetrius's marketing team, boasted scenic photos of Cassidy leading a horse along a sunrise pasture. Bookings trickled in steadily, enough to fill half the bunkhouse. Encouraged by this early success, they prepared to welcome the arrivals. Cassidy fretted over details, ensuring the bunkhouse linens were fresh, the stable areas safe for novices, and the orchard tours properly guided. Demetrius assured her he'd handle guest check-ins, leaning on his experience with high-end hospitality from previous business ventures. They teased each other about reversing roles. She'd manage the ranch tasks, he'd greet city folks. When the guests arrived, 2 couples and a family of 4, plus a lone traveler from out of state, Cassidy and Demetrius found themselves working side by side in hosting. She taught the guests basic writing tips, while Demetrius led orchard tours and orchard-to-table demonstrations. The orchard's late summer peaches were still in decent supply, so they let guests pick fruit and taste jam. Even the orchard irrigation fiasco became a conversation point, highlighting how they overcame adversity. In the evenings, they gathered around a large fire pit near the barn, telling ranch stories, roasting marshmallows. The city folks marveled at the star-filled sky, free from light pollution. Cassidy strolled among them, exuding quiet confidence, her hat tipped back as she explained constellations. Demetrius watched from a few steps away, heart swelling. This ranch stay concept was working, and more importantly, it was forging a sense of community. He felt a flutter of pride and love for the woman who anchored it all. As the guests' final day approached, one of the couples, a middle-aged pair from Chicago, stopped Demetrius outside the orchard. The husband said, "We came expecting a touristy show, but this place is authentic. We appreciate all your hospitality, Mr. Harrington. And Miss Sawyer, of course." Demetrius smiled. "Thank you. We're aiming for genuine ranch living, not just a facade." They nodded, praising Cassidy's knowledge and warm guidance. After they left, Demetrius found Cassidy in the orchard, checking on the new saplings. He approached quietly, arms slipping around her waist from behind. She tensed, then relaxed, leaning back into him. "Guests love you," he murmured. She snorted softly. "They love the ranch. I'm just the girl in the hat." He kissed her temple. "You're more than that. This place wouldn't exist without your heart." She turned, looping her arms around his neck. "And your money, city boy." He laughed, hugging her tight. "Money's worthless without someone who knows how to use it on the ground." They shared a sweet moment amid the orchard rows, the late afternoon sun slanting through leaves. The synergy of their partnership was undeniable. For the first time, Demetrius felt he'd built something not just for profit, but for legacy, reconnecting with his family's land, forging a future that meshed city brilliance with rural grit. And Cassidy was the spark who made it possible. Just as they celebrated the success of the ranch's first guest weekend, an unwelcome face appeared. Brett Hawthorne, a local land developer known for shady deals. He pulled up in a shiny truck, stepping out with a smarmy grin. Cassidy stiffened on sight. "What do you want, Hawthorne?" she said, voice cold. "We told you before, the ranch isn't for sale." Hawthorne looked around, unimpressed. "Heard you got new backing. A city billionaire, right? Must cost a fortune to fix this dump. Figure you might want to offload it before you sink too deep. I can make a fair offer." Demetrius stepped forward, expression stony. "We're not interested. The ranch is not for sale." Hawthorne sneered. "Sure, for now, but these ranch stay gimmicks won't pay the bills forever. When it flops, call me. I'll be around." He tipped his hat mockingly to Cassidy. "Shame you're wasting your time on a fantasy." Cassidy bristled, but Demetrius placed a hand on her arm, quietly reining her in. "Thanks for your concern," Demetrius said, voice clipped, "but we'll pass. Goodbye." Hawthorne shrugged, climbing back into his truck. "Suit yourselves. Just remember, land developers are sniffing around. Don't come crying when the bank reclaims it." With that, he drove off, dust trailing behind. Cassidy let out a frustrated growl. "That snake's been bugging Silas for years. He wants to subdivide the land for some tacky suburban project." Demetrius's jaw tightened. "Over my dead body. We're not letting him bulldoze this place." She exhaled, some tension easing. "I just hate that he's waiting for us to fail. I want to prove him wrong." Demetrius took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "We will. The first wave of guests was a success, right?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, let's keep it going, no matter what snakes lurk." He pulled her into a side hug, a new wave of determination surging. The ranch faced external threats, but they wouldn't back down. "We're forging a new chapter, one that includes me and Cassidy seeing this through, and perhaps forging a future that extended beyond the ranch business, right into the realm of unwavering commitment." Weeks turned to months, the ranch stay concept growing slowly. The orchard blossomed under Cassidy's careful watch. The orchard's produce drew local attention, and the bunkhouse occupancy rose steadily on weekends. Demetrius juggled time between the ranch and occasional city trips for major business deals, relying on a capable management team. The more he tasted ranch life, the less he desired the frenzied corporate scene. Even his father, upon a second visit, seemed grudgingly impressed by the progress, yet challenges persisted. A sudden spate of storms battered the region, flooding certain pastures, damaging newly fixed fences. Cassidy and Demetrius rushed to secure livestock, losing a few calves in the chaos. The orchard took a beating from hail, bruising fruit. Tension flared anew. Both exhausted, they snapped at each other over trifles. But each spat ended in mutual apologies and fierce embraces, their bond tested but unbroken. One raw morning after a night of high winds, Cassidy discovered a pregnant mare had gone into early labor, risking complications. She and Demetrius sprang into action, retrieving the vet. For hours, they huddled in the stable, assisting. Demetrius's shirt became drenched in sweat and amniotic fluids, but he refused to leave. He cradled the mare's head, speaking soothing words he recalled from childhood, while Cassidy and the vet handled the foal's delivery. Finally, near dawn, a wobbly foal emerged. Demetrius gazed at the fragile creature with awe, exhaustion mingling with joy. Cassidy's face lit with relief as she gently toweled the foal, her eyes shining at Demetrius's unwavering presence. That quiet moment, illuminated by a single lantern in the stable, crystallized the reality that they were truly partners on every front. Tending newborn livestock at 3 a.m. might be the farthest thing from the boardroom, but for Demetrius, it felt more meaningful than any high-stakes negotiation. When Cassidy turned to him, smiling in gratitude, he brushed straw from her hair and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. She closed her eyes, leaning into him. "Thank you for staying." His voice thick with emotion, he whispered, "I'm not going anywhere, Cassidy." As storms eased, the ranch stabilized. The orchard recovered enough for a modest fall harvest, the orchard tours continuing to draw curious visitors. One crisp evening, Demetrius set up a surprise, a small candlelit dinner in a clearing near the orchard, just for him and Cassidy. He wanted to celebrate their recent successes and discuss the future. She arrived just after sundown, wearing her usual jeans but with a warm jacket. She found him waiting by a simple wooden table under an oak tree, strings of fairy lights twinkling overhead. A portable heater warded off the autumn chill. She let out a breathy laugh, eyes shining. You do know how to create ambiance, Harrington. He grinned, guiding her to a seat. Couldn't have you thinking I've lost my romantic side. They dined on hearty stew, fresh bread, and apple pie from orchard apples. No chef, no fancy silver, just 2 bowls and a pair of spoons. Cassidy teased that it was far safer than letting him near a stove unsupervised. He retorted that at least the orchard's apples were safe from scorching. They laughed, the tension of the past months dissolving into shared contentment. After the meal, he poured hot cider into mugs, the steam curling in the lantern light. He cleared his throat, taking her hand. Cassidy, we've come a long way. The ranch is turning around, thanks to you. And I've never felt so grounded. She squeezed his hand, face reflecting the lantern's glow. I feel the same. I never thought I'd trust a billionaire from the city to care about this land, but you proved me wrong. He swallowed, voice trembling with emotion. I love you. I want us to keep building this future, together, for real. Her breath caught. She blinked rapidly. Demetrius, I love you too. Her words emerged in a soft rush, a tear glinting in her eye. You came here a stranger, and now I can't imagine this ranch or my life without you. He stood, gently tugging her up from the bench. Under the oak tree and fairy lights, he cupped her cheek, leaning in. Their lips met in a tender, unhurried kiss. The orchard's scent of ripened fruit mingled with the crisp night air and the heady warmth of their connection. When they pulled back, he kept his forehead against hers, hearts thudding in sync. She let out a shaky laugh. We're quite the pair, a stubborn cowgirl and a city mogul. He smirked, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead, and we wouldn't want it any other way. With their romance openly acknowledged, the ranch staff teased them good-naturedly. Hank joked that the orchard might produce more fruit with so much lovey-dovey energy in the air. Demetrius spent half his nights in the old ranch house, sharing small domestic routines with Cassidy. Mornings found them sipping coffee by the porch, discussing orchard yield or the upcoming cattle drive. He'd never felt so at peace. But as the ranch's success grew, so did interest from opportunists. Brett Hawthorne reappeared, this time brandishing claims that the orchard's water rights were contested. Some old land deed from Silas's day, he claimed, threatening lawsuits if the orchard expansions continued. Cassidy bristled, suspecting him of forging or twisting legal documents. Demetrius's lawyers got involved, discovering multiple inaccuracies in Hawthorne's argument. Tensions flared dangerously. Late one afternoon, Hawthorne confronted them near the orchard's edge, spewing accusations that they were illegally diverting water. He demanded a chunk of orchard land in compensation or threatened a lengthy court battle. Cassidy was ready to slug him, but Demetrius calmly produced a letter from his attorney, citing centuries-old water rights belonging to the ranch. He threatened countersuit if Hawthorne pursued the matter. Hawthorne fumed, face red, and spat on the ground. Fine, keep your orchard, but I guarantee you, city boy, this ranch venture will fold. You'll regret ignoring my offers. Demetrius faced him down, unwavering. We're not selling to you ever. Now kindly leave before I have you trespassed. Hawthorne stomped off, cursing under his breath. Cassidy exhaled, adrenaline high. She turned to Demetrius, exasperated. That man's a plague. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. He won't win. We have the law and the funds to fight if needed. She nodded, but worry shadowed her gaze. I just hope it doesn't cost us too much time or money. He kissed her temple. We'll endure. This ranch is our future. He can't scare us off. She mustered a grim smile, leaning into him. Their unity stiffened their resolve. Let the Hawthorns of the world come. The orchard would flourish, the bunkhouse would thrive, and they'd hold tight to each other no matter the storms. As autumn reached its peak, the ranch saw a surge of visitors wanting to experience harvest festivities. They hosted orchard picking events, hay rides, and a small harvest fair. Guests posted glowing reviews online, praising the ranch's authenticity and the friendly owners. A proud cowgirl and her city slicker fiancé, as rumors now labeled Demetrius. For once, Demetrius didn't mind the moniker fiancé if it meant they recognized Cassidy as an equal partner. He considered a formal proposal, an actual ring and vow. But each time, he hesitated, wanting the perfect moment. Then, one crisp evening after the harvest fair, they stood together in the orchard, gazing at the newly installed orchard sign, Sagebrush Plains Ranch and Orchard, now open for authentic ranch stays. The orchard's orchard had come full circle, from near ruin to a blossoming symbol of their synergy. He turned to Cassidy, heart pounding. The setting sun bathed her in golden light, her hair glowing. He couldn't wait another moment. Gently, he cupped her cheek. Cassidy Sawyer, I need you to know, I want a life with you. Not just as business partners, but as partners in everything. She blinked, a faint tremor crossing her lips. You do? He swallowed, drawing a small velvet box from his pocket. The ring sparkled with a single diamond flanked by tiny turquoise inlays. He'd had it custom designed, blending city elegance with a nod to Southwestern style. Will you marry me? Build a future on this land we saved together? Tears welled in her eyes. She pressed a hand to her mouth, letting out a shaky laugh. You unstoppable city boy, she whispered. Then her voice grew firm, a tear slipping down her cheek. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, heart flooding with relief and joy. She laughed through tears, arms looping around his neck. Their kiss was deep, hungry, a promise of shared tomorrows. The orchard's wind gently rustled the leaves, as if applauding the union. In the days that followed, they announced the engagement quietly to friends, staff, and local supporters. People cheered, teasing that the orchard's real brand was love. Hank joked that if not for that cooking mishap, none of this would have happened. Demetrius teased that Cassidy was the real reason he'd set the stove on fire. She smacked his arm, blushing. Life felt simultaneously new and deeply rooted. 1 year later, Sagebrush Plains Ranch flourished. The orchard expanded with new fruit varieties, the bunkhouse frequently booked by vacationers seeking an authentic ranch experience, and the premium organic beef brand garnered attention. Brett Hawthorne receded into the background, eventually dropping his lawsuits. The ranch's success was unstoppable. Demetrius and Cassidy married under the ranch's ancient oak tree. She wore a simple lace gown with cowboy boots. He wore a tailored suit with a bolo tie. The ceremony was intimate. Ranch staff, a few city friends, and local neighbors. Vows were exchanged with tears and laughter, culminating in a heartfelt kiss that made the crowd whoop and holler. They celebrated with a barn dance, twinkle lights hanging from rafters, and a live country band. Even Demetrius's father came, smiling with genuine pride. That night, as newlyweds, they slipped away from the reception to wander the orchard beneath a sky thick with stars. Cassidy's wedding ring glinted in the moonlight, a perfect complement to the orchard's gentle breeze. Demetrius held her close, heart surging with gratitude that fate and a near-disastrous cooking attempt had led him here. She murmured, hard to believe it's real. You, me, the orchard, the ranch thriving. We corralled each other's hearts, I guess. He chuckled, pressing his lips to her temple. And I can't think of a better way to be wrangled. His voice turned soft with emotion. I love you. She smiled, eyes shining. Love you too, city boy, always. They strolled onward, hand in hand, forging a path through orchard rows that symbolized the union of two worlds. His unstoppable ambition and her steadfast grit. The land they'd nurtured had, in turn, nurtured their bond. And as the orchard rustled with gentle applause from the night breeze, they stepped into forever, side by side, Billionaire and Cowgirl, unstoppable together.